Ring ring.
Ahoy?
Ahoy. Is this
Ahoy,
Rio
ahoy.
Grande Pickups of Houston, Texas?
Well, yes, ma'am, it is.
Ooh, may I speak to Jake Rynearson?
That is I.
Nice to see you, Jake. Thanks for picking up.
You got it.
This is Emily Walters with the Lipstick Pickup. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, also known as Guitar Town. And I'm calling my new friend Jake, who is in Houston. I'm going to be talking to him today about the subject of my podcast, Lipstick Pickups. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I've talked to a lot of different people, musicians, and he's, for the audio listener, he is holding up a lipstick pickup. Props.
You're not going to believe this, but they were just sitting here for months now.
Is that a regular one or the one that we'll be discussing?
Yeah, so this is actually the standard pickup. This is what we based our replacement off of. And I can kind of go over the changes here in a minute or whatever.
Awesome. Well, my community wants to know all about it. I had a bunch of people send me the promo information on how I met you. You are in the guitar business in Houston. You've been in the guitar business for some time. I'm going to ask you some questions about that. Mm-hmm. But right now you're involved in, you and your company, Rio Grande Pickups, is involved in a joint venture with Silvertone Guitar to provide an upgraded pickup to their standard pickups in the new Silvertone guitars.
That's
and
great.
My community reached out to me when the promo hit and said, wow, look at this. And that's why I started stalking Jake on Instagram, and I reached out to him after NAMM and asked him if he would want to tell my community about these new pickups, which are called the Wide Boy pickups. And everybody's interested to know. So, thank you, Jake, for making my podcast finally about what my podcast is about. At Pickup Authority is on the phone in Houston.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm happy to be here with you.
Welcome to the Lipstick Pickup, Jake. All right. I want to know about Jake and Rio Grande Pickups. Talk to me.
Okay, so where do you want to start? Do you want to start with me, or do you want to start with Rio Grande?
I would like to start with you, Jake, and I'll tell you why. I told you a little bit in our pregame about how interesting I find the business side of things, and I'm interested in the people and the entrepreneurs and the hustlers and the people who have the patience to stand in a booth all day and talk to people about pickups. So I want to know about Jake.
So for me and the guitar business, it all started, it started when I was 10, because I picked up a guitar and thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And, I wouldn't say I was ever like a very musically inclined kid at all, but the guitar had this, like magic wand type of appeal, where you could put on a guitar and almost become a different person, or like engage in the world in a way that was, I don't know, from a kid's perspective, it seemed supernatural, and then just the feeling of playing guitar, playing, a loud open chord, like you were Pete Townshend. I think every guitar player ever can hear what I'm saying in that regard. So, okay, I've been playing guitar my whole life. When I was 19, I was in college, and I really, really did not like college at all. And so
Where did you go to school, may I ask? I'm always interested.
So I was going to the University of St. Thomas. It's a Catholic private university in Houston, Texas. It's in a historically, liberal part of Houston, like a very, it's like where all the, punk rockers and all the gay folks live. Like, it's just that type of neighborhood, There's, like, a lot of bars and there's a lot of nightlife, you know.
Yeah, academic areas can be like that.
Right, right, right. And it was the kind of it was like kind of a silly notion. Like I wanted to go to that school because it was in the hip part of town that I was going to constantly while I was a teenager. You know, I would be, jumping out of my bedroom window to jump in my friend's car to go see a show, a rock show, in this part of town. Um, so that was kind of like, my backdoor interest into college was what side of town it was on, which is
It sounds
obviously
sounds
dumb,
plausible to me.
and so I don't know. I couldn't figure college out. It didn't feel like it was right for me. I really wanted to get into some sort of trade. And one thing that I did was I started doing stage crew work. Like you would go set up a PA system, set up some lights, truss. We would build stages. It was really it was like a very low level job, but it was, I don't know, it felt rewarding just to be in the mix at concerts and
Yeah.
everything. At the same time, I found a guy that was repairing amplifiers in his garage, and his name is Chad Hawkins. Now, I found him on Craigslist, just a guy just advertising, I do amp repair and whatnot. And so I hit him up and said, "Hey, are you looking for help? I mean, I'll work for free." And so I rode my bike from this area of town was called Montrose, and his neighborhood was the next neighborhood over. So I would ride my bike from one to the other, and I just I would not leave the guy alone. I mean, on days that he was busy, he would just let me hang out in the garage and tinker on amplifiers and stuff. And so, that was my first, real job as far as working on gear, kind of getting that deeper level of knowledge and appreciation. Is all started from amplifiers, and so we did nothing but tube amps, and so and I've done tube amps basically ever since. In 2009, at 22 years old, I started a company called Steamboat Amps, and
Wow.
and so Steamboat Amps is what eventually brought me here. Steamboat Amps is still open. It's a part of the same company that owns Rio Grande and now Robin Guitars as well.
Excellent. That makes you the latest in a long line of guitar business people who started in the amplification business.
Yeah, yeah,
Leo
yeah.
Fender, to name, and Nat Daniel, the founder of Dan Alestro Silvertone, is one of them. So
Right, right,
amazing. And you were playing guitar at this whole time and also learning about amps from,
right.
I guess, what would be considered an old school apprenticeship.
Yeah, yeah. It was very apprentice like.
That's
We made a bunch of amps called Hawkins amps, and we repaired a whole bunch of them. Eventually, Chad got some really cool opportunities to play music in Europe, like in the mid 2000s. Like European interest in like Americana music just exploded,
mm-hmm.
and he was going over on tours with a Texan act, a guy named Johnny Falstaff. Took him over there, and he was playing upright bass on these tours. And he just found like a fairly fruitful career playing music in Europe. And so when he decided to stay, that's when I was kind of on my own. And then in 2009, I decided, 22 years old to start a business is a little crazy. And but I didn't know any better. I didn't have the experience to know that it was a bad idea.
Somebody needs to tell Steve Jobs and Bill Gates that it's a crazy idea to start a company at the age of
Yeah, yeah.
to
So
blow off
yeah,
college and start a company.
right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I wish I was as successful as those guys, but you know,
you're still very, very young. I'm only pointing out that that sounds like good judgment, and your apprenticeship in the amp business was a privileged education.
oh yeah, it was great. I mean, you know, and it's something that I don't know. I made the conscious decision to stop going to college. And at that time in my life, I really had the time and the ability to throw myself into it. You know, I would read a handful of books that I still have to this day sitting in a crate behind me. I would read them cover to cover, you know, until I understood what I was reading.
So I'm loving this chat. These books that you're reading, is this on amplifiers and guitars or other subjects? Are you
Really just tube amps. I mean, you
okay?
know, of
Gotcha.
course, you can't read about a Fender amp without also reading about a Fender guitar, and you know, there's
Yeah.
countless examples of this, you know, from you know, weird, obscure Rickenbacker amps to all the bizarre Gibson amps, Gretsch, Guild. I mean, it just goes on and on. Silvertone amps. In fact, I mean, we'll talk about those later, but you know, all stuff that it's easy to get me excited about. I like amps.
I it makes you like a lot of other guitar people. And of course, I've had to learn about the Dan Electro amps, and people send me things on the Dan Electro and Silvertone amps, and I go, don't enable me. I can only learn about the guitars. I don't have the intellectual capacity to learn about all the amplifiers.
Well, here's
Show
a
me. He's pulling a book down from his
yeah, yeah,
shelf for
yeah.
the
So
audio listener.
and you can see what some of my books have been through. Okay, this was a dog attack. This is a great book to start with because it has a lot of super
I'm going to
easy.
take a screenshot of this.
Yeah,
I'm going to have a lot of fun with this.
yeah. This is a great one because it's got the first half of it is all history, and so it doesn't throw anything technical at you for a while. So if you are into the history, it's Dan Electro and Silvertone. Here we go.
Yeah.
You can see it right there.
They go together. It's a tone. It's the recipe to tone.
For
Tone is
sure.
what it's all about in guitar
So,
amps.
so
Okay,
that's an easy one to start with.
so did you get into guitar building then after that? Tell me about where you went from there.
Yeah, so it took me several years to get more interested in guitar building. I was always, of course, I was interested, but I didn't have, I don't know, it didn't feel like a priority, I guess. In about 2012, I had moved Steamboat Amps into a shop very close to downtown Houston in this absolutely gem of a neighborhood called the Near North Side. It's a very small neighborhood, and for as close as it is to downtown, it's like nobody had ever heard of it. I mean, I had so many people come into the shop. They were like, "Wow, I can see Minute Maid Park, which is home of the Astros. I can see Minute Maid Park from here, but I've never been to this neighborhood in my entire life, and I'm from Houston."
Was it previously industrial that was
Yeah, so
okay?
it was home to a rail yard. The rail yard closed in 2004, and then they had 10 years of soil remediation, so they didn't start redeveloping it until 2014. So I moved into that neighborhood in 2011, and nothing happened for five or 6 years, and then slowly they started repaving the streets. They started putting up like high-rise condos and stuff.
Are you still there, or
No, I was in that
okay?
neighborhood for 9.5 years, from 2011 till June 2011 to the very end of 2020.
All right.
Yeah,
And
and
then
so
where?
we're going back to getting into guitar building. So Steamboat Amps had been in this shop, and it was a pretty large shop. It was the way it was set up was really really cool. A buddy of mine and I lived there for a couple of years. It was big enough to
That was
have.
somebody's dream.
Yeah. So half of it was just a giant workshop, and then the other half of it was basically like living quarters. Eventually, nobody lived there, and it was just the shop for many years. And we changed the house, became like offices, and I had all of the repair stuff going on in the house, and then like all of the dust making stuff was in the big warehouse shop. But in 2012, I'm sitting in my shop, and I'm like, we make amplifiers. We have all of the tools to make cool cabinets, and so I just started cutting up guitars, and cut up few bodies, ordered parts off the internet, and just stuck stuff together, and that was my entry into guitars.
Sounds like a natural progression to me because it's assembling of components. That's why I've loved learning about guitars because it's just a handful of ingredients.
Right.
The pickups in this, and Leo Fender started an amp business, and so did Matt
Yeah.
Daniel.
And
Did you consider yourself a luthier at that point, or were you just
never.
saying I'm assembling guitars?
Yeah. It's funny because later on my mentor, Dave Wintz, who started Rio Grande Pickups and Robin Guitars, kind of became my mentor, and he said, that word never sat quite right with me, luthier. It's like I'm not some fine tuner of violins. I'm more like a guitar mechanic.
Ooh, I
And I
like that.
go, oh man, that is so much cooler than luthier. I'm a guitar mechanic, okay? I'm gonna wrench on your
Journeyman
guitar.
luthier. It's called. You know how you know the expression shade tree mechanic.
Oh, of course,
You're a
yeah,
shade tree luthier.
yeah, so, yeah,
Okay, sorry to interrupt. So now Jake is in the guitar business.
yeah. So I mean, I started very, very slowly. I never, I sold very, very few guitars in the first 10 plus years.
Were they
I
projects for friends or yeah?
Yeah, lots of projects for friends, experiments for myself. I put together a couple of guitars 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I have a few of them that are in pieces, and they're the kind of thing that you should probably just throw away, but I can't because they have, you know, because I woke up at midnight and worked on that guitar barefoot in the shop adjacent to the house. But
That's so awesome.
yeah, so
And
in 2020 we kind of realized that it was time to leave the near north side, and so I found a shopping center on the east side of town, which is another pretty hip area of town. It's real close to University of Houston. There's a shopping center there called Talakepaki Plaza, and a friend of mine owns a coffee shop there. And so all it took was one call, and before I know it, I'm checking out a retail space there. And the retail space was just big enough for me to move my amplifier business there. And at this point, I had enough traffic at the shop that I felt like I needed to have a retail component.
mm-hmm.
Because we basically said we're going to see 4 or 5 customers regarding amp repair every day.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we try to sell him a used guitar or a guitar pedal?
Good thinking.
And so, I think I started doing all that in like 2017, maybe. But it got real when we moved to the East End, and we actually had a storefront with regular hours and all of that. And, that was something that was kind of... It's not something that I planned with a whole lot of intention. We had to find a place to move the business, and it just felt like it made sense to open this storefront. And the first 2 years, it went really, really well. It did great. But then my friend passed away. And I guess, so now we can kind of go back and talk about Rio Grande and Robin.
Okay.
So, Rio Grande Pickups was started in 1993. The two guys that started that company are Bart Wittrock and David Wintz. Now, Bart and David started Rockin Robin, which is a vintage guitar store here in Houston, and it has been open since the 70s.
Still open?
It's still open.
Great.
So they started selling guitars out of their apartment, and then they got a storefront, and then they bought this building that they're in now. And shoot, I really don't know the year, but it would have been late 70s, early 80s. In 1982, these guys started a brand of guitars called Robin Guitars, kind of like as a homage to the store that is Rockin Robin. And what they were doing is they were importing, they would draw guitar designs, and they would have a factory in Japan make these guitars. They would import the guitars, they would set them up at the store, they would sell them out of the store, and they would ship them all over the U.S. They were really, really, really cool guitars, and, as many people know, Japanese have a very good reputation for making guitars.
And cars and electronics. Were
Right.
these guitars all kinds of different, inspired by all kinds of things, Strats, Tellys, or what?
Yeah, so the kind of original Robin model is called the Ranger, and it's a take on the Strat.
Okay.
The nut is a little wider. The pickups are different. We put a humbucker in the neck position, a Strat pickup in the middle position, and then a Telecaster pickup in the bridge position. So to me, it's like a rhythm guitar player's Swiss Army knife, or also the ultimate country guitar, because you can really do just about anything with it in the context of country music.
Right on.
So that's the original model, and we still make the Ranger today. There were a few others. The very first guitars were made in the Tokai factory. Later in the 80s, they were made at the ESP factory. And then there was a third factory, and it's a Japanese name. I mean, not that Tokai isn't, but I can never remember it, and I would butcher the pronunciation. So, I mean, this is a lot of history. I'm sorry to just lay all this out, because it spans decades.
This is fabulous history, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm trying to achieve with the podcast. So please continue on.
So Dave Wintz, he was the real brainchild behind Robin Guitars. Like, he was the guitar designer, and he just had this amazing knack for it. He designed a bunch of different models in the 80s and was able to create such sophisticated drawings that he could mail them to Japan and get a really high quality product. He made, not only country guitars, he made a bunch of heavy metal guitars, and he made a particular guitar that is very sought after. Is called the Robin Artisan. It's basically the SG, but if it were big like a Les Paul. And so just a few nights ago, Nirvana got together and played some songs for Fire Aid. Well, Pat Smear is a Robin Artisan collector, and he played the Robin Artisan at Fire Aid for 2 songs, and of course that made us very happy to see.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so the Robin Artisan, that was in 1985, I think. Uh, in 1986, ESP made the Robin design called the Wedge, which is the most radical, pointiest guitar you've ever seen in your life. It looks like a Cadillac logo. It's utterly insane.
I
Most
can't
people who see it go, what the? But it's really cool. If only you wore it on your body, you'd go, oh my God, I feel like a rock star,
Amazing.
Like I need to join Kiss or something. And then, so towards the late 80s, the dollar fell against the yen, and they just fairly abruptly decided that they were not going to produce any more. They weren't going to pay a factory in Japan to make guitars. And so Dave found a warehouse in Houston and rented out and bought a bunch of industrial woodworking equipment. And he said, we're going to make Robin guitars in Houston, Texas. And so in the late 80s, I think starting in 87, they started producing Robin guitars here in town.
That is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because that's women in the other direction.
Yeah, very. You almost never see a company do that.
Not in that era either. I'm
Right.
a lot older than you are, and I remember a lot of businesses and exchange rates and trends, and I remember a lot of things. That was an interesting time for them to decide. We're not going to have these made over there. We're going to make them here in Houston. Wow.
Yeah, and
I'm empowered.
Yeah, and they had come out with one of the very first models to come out of the Houston shop, like a new design, was a design called the Machete. And, I mean, to this day, it is the most futuristic-looking guitar.
Is this why people in the guitar business call them axes, because of the machete?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where they were coming from. They were like, okay, like axe, machete, okay, we got this. I mean, his names were incredible. The Ranger, the Machete, the Artisan, the Avalon, the Savoy. I mean, just the Wrangler. Of course, Wrangler Jeans sent a cease and desist against Robin Guitars to stop them from using the word Wrangler. So
did it work?
Yeah, he had to change the name to Rawhide. So, and it's funny, in one of the filing cabinets, I found a sheet of paper and it said, "Name candidates for Wrangler rename," and there was 50 names. I mean, from Longhorn to I don't know, just
you can't have the
anything.
Longhorn. That belongs to Dan Electro.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so, towards the bottom of the page, Rawhide with 3 circles around it, I was like,
I like it.
It was very cool to, see some of those things in the office just from opening filing cabinets. So, okay, so anyway, we're in the late 80s. They come out with the Machete. It's the most futuristic guitar design. I mean, it looks absolutely insane. If you've seen it, you've probably never forgot about it. At some point, there was a lot of hair metal bands using the Robin guitars. Shortly after 1991, Nirvana comes out, hair metal crashes, and as much as the Robin, Robin was really into the hair metal scene. I mean, the Machetes and Medleys were like very, very popular with that genre. And so they kind of saw, deflated interest in the 90s. And that's when they came out with this Avalon model and this Savoy model. They're more like Les Paul style guitars. Mm-hmm. And that's what I play predominantly. Really, really fantastic guitars. And, you could only get an American-made Avalon or Savoy. And so all of the American-made Robins are just like incredible quality. I mean, he had such a good team of folks putting guitars together. Now, in 1993, that's when Bart and Dave started Rio Grande Pickups. Now, they were already very, very familiar with pickups because at their vintage guitar store, Rockin Robin, they did repairs since the 70s, and that included everything. I have pictures of Dave rewinding a pickup with a sewing machine motor. Like, that's a cute old tale that you read about, Seymour Duncan, but like Dave was right there. He lived it. You can see his big sideburns and everything. It's great.
Amazing.
So they had a lot of experience winding pickups. I believe it was Bart, though, that had come up with the name Rio Grande, and they had just, they wound some telly pickups at the Rockin Robin shop, and he said, it seems like guys are really interested in this, so, buy some pickup winders and start, let's start marketing the pickups.
Because a traditional telly pickup, I've learned this about music, a single coil, right? They're somewhat related to lipstick pickups,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and for the layman, it's you see a Telecaster neck pickup and you say, "Oh, that's a lipstick pickup." It isn't, but they look a lot alike. You could see like, I don't know if it was Silvertone taking their cue from Fender, or vice versa, but the Telecaster's pretty awesome guitar. It's definitely my favorite guitar growing up. And that neck pickup with the silver cover was always a sweet sound, So, Rio Grande starts in 1993. They buy some winding machines, to put in the factory where they were making guitars. In 1994, Robin and Rio Grande moved into the building that I'm sitting in right now. So that was 31 years ago. And so they made guitars and pickups, and they came out with a ton of different pickup models. I mean, if you go look at the Rio Grande Pickups website, there are just possibly too many pickup models. It's hard to choose, but
many pickups.
We know that you have 10 different guitars, and they all take 10 different pickups. So we made all of those, and then we made some that sound like this guitar but fit in this guitar.
God bless America.
Yeah. Don't mess with Texas.
Don't mess with Texas.
Yeah.
I love the visual. I love the names of them. I went through, not to interrupt your story, I'm going to let you pick it back up, but I went through your client list. It's a long story. And I actually texted my friend Steve Mackey when I was going through the list, Winona Judd. And he goes, "Oh, yes, in the early 2000s, yes." I mean, he's got a lot of bases, and I'm sure he knows who you are. And I said, "I'm going to be very happy to talk to Rio Grande Pickups." And I see you. Oh, yes. And I said, I'm going to get to talk to him about pickups. And he said it was a long time ago, but I saw a lot of people.
We'd love to reconnect with them because Winona's current bass player is someone that we've been in contact with recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw your star-studded list, and I know it took years to build that business, but, I'm seeing Mike Watt, Richard Thompson, Tom Peterson. I've met him before. He lives in Nashville.
Yeah.
Rick Ocasek.
Right, yeah. I mean,
rest in peace.
Legend.
Unconventional guitar god.
Yeah, totally.
Who else? Brian Henneman from the Bottle Rockets. I've met him before. Awesome. Joe Pisapia. Do you know who he is?
I do not know Joe.
I mean, your guitar playing list is a long one, and he's played with a bunch of people. He's a music producer, but he was playing with Guster, the band Guster.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, not to digress, but it's a long list of people that you do business with. Okay, back to Rio Grande.
Yeah, so
tell me the story.
They had the guitar factory and the pickup factory in one place, and then they were just making Robin guitars, and Robin guitars came with Rio Grande pickups. I mean, what a great situation, right? And things seem to be going pretty well. I mean, like the 2000s era Robin guitars, I mean, from I mean, the 90s ones were fantastic, but I mean, just, it seemed like at the 2000s and onward, they were like just next level. I mean, if you can find the gallery on the Robin Guitars website that we put together, every guitar is like breathtaking. It's just absolutely amazing. I mean, they really had the nicest wood, the sweetest paint jobs. But in 2009, there was the big economic crash.
Yeah.
And as Dave put it, the guitar orders just, it was like a faucet turned off. And
Seized
so,
everything, especially in Houston. I told you I grew up in Mississippi, and my mom and dad had friends in Houston. My dad was in the timber business, and he knew about
oh yeah,
commodities and the oil business and all of the things that keep the econ. I know that it was probably felt even harder there in Houston because of
right.
commodity deflation.
Well, it's a really weird kind of two-sided story here because, in 2009, Dave is watching business grind to a halt. Simultaneously, my 22-year-old starry-eyed, naive self is starting his own amp business, not even really having an idea that the economy is basically grinding to a halt, And I think, maybe part of my dumb luck in starting my business was that I knew that I was green. I knew that I wasn't necessarily, I didn't have much trust to offer people. So my repair prices in the early days were rock bottom. I mean, I hardly charged anything for my work in the first few years of doing the business. So maybe that helped, get me through the rough economic times. Simultaneously, like, Dave never stopped making pickups, but he did end Robin guitar production.
Okay.
So in 2010, he decided basically there was not going to be any more Robin guitars. Now, over the next several years, you could maybe twist your arm to get a guitar out of there, out of here. He probably made 2 or 3 a year in the 20 teens, I don't think he should have stopped, but I also understand if you were put in a place where you had to lay off the majority of your staff,
Yeah.
it's just, I couldn't think of anything more heartbreaking. But in those early 2010 years, you did see a certain type of guitar take off, and that was a custom American-made guitar, something that Dave had been doing since the late 80s. And this is something that I think is the untold story about Robin guitars, is that they were ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
In a way that was almost always to their detriment. But it is absolutely fascinating to look at in the historical context of guitars. Like, when they were coming out with the Machete, it was like they were making a design for bands that weren't around for 15 years later.
It's the plight of the pioneer. My father, who we talked about in the pregame, was in the timber business, and he was also ahead of his time in nearly everything that he did, and he lost his business after the planes flew into the towers in 9/11. He was heavily levered in pine plantations, and he lost
Oh
everything.
my God.
And I know that the reason why the story that you're telling me it resonates with me is that he was never especially money motivated. He could take it or leave it. What meant a lot to him was the business that he had built and all of his employees. And now that I'm getting older, he's long past. I understand what the heartbreaking thing was having to let those employees go.
Yeah. I mean, they had 15 people working here, and I mean, this is the biggest shop that I've ever been a part of, but there's 5 of us. I
Yeah.
can't imagine 15 people in here. Don't get me wrong, I want to see that more than anything.
Yeah.
It would be incredible to get it built back up like that. But so anyway, they stopped production in 2010. Thankfully the pickup business sustained, rent and a few employees. So, and they were also able to sell a lot of pickups to other builders, to other stores. They had a really good network of retail for the pickup business. And so in 2016, yeah, so, I had told you that my business, Steamboat Amps, had dabbled in some retail. In 2016, I guess it had gone back that far, but in 2016, I called Dave and I said, hey, I want to carry Rio Grande Pickups at the store. And, we're good with electronics, so I've had a lot of customers express interest in me doing modifications to the electronics in their guitars. I said, oh, well, wouldn't it be great if we did pickup installs? Like, that's something I can do blindfolded, And so Dave came over to my shop in 2016. He walks through the door and he goes, oh, yeah, this is it. You guys are cool. And I'd never met the man before. It was like the man, the myth, the legend. And he and I hit it off. I mean, I just, we became friends real fast. And he was I hope people have this, can relate to this. But when you meet somebody in your career field that can serve as a mentor or is just an older person that has seen some stuff and they take a liking to you, it's powerful. It makes you feel like you are maybe you are in the right place.
Indeed.
And so yeah, 2016 I met Dave and it was really cool getting to know him. When we had to move the shop in 2020, at first that felt like a big tragedy, but when we found the storefront, Dave was like, "Oh my God, this is definitely the move. You should not only do the storefront, but you should make it really awesome."
Was that move necessitated by losing a lease or?
Yeah. So basically the terms of the lease became untenable for me.
Okay.
And it just felt, after 9.5 years, it kind of felt like a rubber meets the road moment. It's like, well, am I going to wait for this building to fall down? Because the building was, it was built in the 1940s. So, we were having like roof leaks and stuff like this. And, I did my best to keep that place together, but it just felt like, with the lease changing and the amount of time and where we were, it just all roads led to leaving,
Right on.
And so when we got the store, Dave was like a huge supporter, and he, up until that point, I had paid, in advance for every single pickup that I bought from him, and I was buying a lot of pickups. And he said, tell you what, I'll give you pickup inventory for the store. I'll fill a case, and we can put a big sign that says Made in Texas, and
There you go.
and people can buy pickups. So he helped me get some product into the new store.
Excellent.
And so that was really cool. And we were actually on his way home on his commute. So, maybe once or twice a week he'd stop in and have a beer and chat about the good old days and guitar in the guitar world, and, tell us who was secretly really cool and secretly really not cool.
Ooh.
Just great stories. And, he was such just an interesting guy, funny guy, very opinionated guy, but also, he was, I would say he was a true friend. Like, if we ever had a disagreement, he wouldn't hold it against you, or wouldn't hold it against me, and I would return the favor, and we got along great. And then tragedy. In 2022, he had a stroke, and unfortunately, he passed away just a few days later.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
At that time, he was allowing me to come to this shop here and use his paint booth. We have like a ventilated paint booth here, and I was trying to learn how to paint guitars. And he said, well, I don't really have much time to teach you, but I can give you some space so you can kind of teach yourself, And, I mean, he was so gracious in that way, allowing me to basically come over here whenever I had free time, which ended up being kind of rare. But on this particular week, I saw him on a Monday, and that following Saturday, my wife and I saw him in the ICU, and we got to say goodbye. So that is like a thing that I'm powerfully thankful for. I got to say, Dave, I don't know if I can hear you or not, but man, you were a really cool dude to me, and I'll never forget what a cool dude you were. So
That is a bittersweet, wonderful story about afterlife.
yeah.
When you talk about his mentorship and how much it meant to you, that's a well-lived life right there.
Yeah.
What an opportunity he gave you, and as sad as that is, I'm glad that you were there with him. And whew,
Yeah, so and this was in the middle of 22. 22, as you know, was like the first light at the end of the tunnel in regards to the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
We were actually enjoying a very good year at the store. Like, everybody was playing guitar in 2021 and 22.
Mm-hmm.
So the store was doing pretty well. But I knew that I couldn't, like, we lost Rio Grande Pickups, and what was going to happen to Robin. So, I had to figure out what to do. And, so I looked into what it would take, and how we could do it. And, me, Dave, and a mutual friend, this guy named Jack Brandt. Jack Brandt had been coming to my store for amp repair for years now. I'd been doing mostly vintage Fender stuff for him.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool, like tweed amps and blackface champs, stuff like that. And he said, well, I might be interested in doing this with you. Can you run it? And I said, I probably said, hell yes, I can. Maybe inside I was like, I don't know, can I?
Manifest it.
So we spent a lot of time. It took us a year to figure out how to do it. And in July 1st of 2023, we got our key to the building, and thankfully, mostly everything was here. There was a few, like, extremely random things that were missing. One of my kind of sticking points was that there was an employee here named Mike Nguyen. He's a Vietnamese guy who came to Houston in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his first job in Houston was at Robin Guitars. So we got in touch with Mike, and I said, the only way that I can do this is if we can hire Mike full-time. Because Mike knows everything. He knows how to wind all the pickups. He knows where the stuff is. And so yeah, we rehired Mike, and now I still had the store, and so my 3-year lease was ending at the end of 2023. It would have been December 2023, and so I would either had to re-sign for 3 years, and you know, on one hand, 2022 was the best year the Steamboat ever did. 2023 wasn't really like working out that way, and I said, you know, my best shot at running Rio Grande Pickups and reviving Robin guitars is going to be to move Steamboat into the Robin in Rio Grande facility and just close the store, close the retail aspect. As cool as a guitar store is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the passionate project that, you know, making stuff. Like I'm a guy that makes stuff. Like that's
Yeah.
my thing. I'm not the steward of the store that the store and the customer deserves, you know.
Well, you still have people come visit you. It's just
Oh,
by appointment. Yeah, it's just
yeah.
not the same as a retail. And that allows you. I've also done retail.
Yeah.
So, you know, the hours, the commitment to the hours, and, you know, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I have to tell you, I'm going to take a brief pause to tell you that I had no idea how fascinating this conversation was going to be when
Well,
we
I'm so
reached
glad.
out.
You know,
This is the kind of
I
history
think
I
it's a
love.
really interesting story. I mean, you know, I hope more,
It's
you know, people
decades
hear
in the
about it.
making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
decades in the making, and you at your tender age is already a survivor. So-
Yeah.
and I'm sure that all of your mentors are very proud.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
This is fantastic. So I want. Do you have anything more about the story? I want to hear about the Wide Boy pickups and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
this whole
I know.
started with
This is like
Silvertone.
why we got together, and
But
we hadn't
we
talked
we
about it at
got.
all.
I told you a pregame that I wanted to hear the story of
Yeah.
your business, and
Yeah.
we're pretty much there, right?
Yeah.
We're
Gosh, the only other thing I would say, and this is just like a purely self-promotional thing, is that while I was at Talakepaki Market where we had the storefront, me and one of my best friends of many years, I've known this guy since I started Steamboat actually. A guy named Halston Luna. Him and I opened a private music school called East End Music Lessons, and
wow.
and that remains in that shopping center, in the Talakepaki shopping center.
And
In
who's
fact,
running that?
my one of my best friends, Halston Luna. So
Oh wow. Oh, so he's still involved with that.
yeah, so we own that business together, completely separately from the guitar business, and it's just really cool to teach kids the passion of music. You know, I'm not a teacher, but I, you know, try to do anything I can from behind the scenes. We built out 4 classrooms. Well, I'm sorry, 5 classrooms. We have like the 5th classroom is like a drum room slash ensemble room. We got a piano, and I have my whole amp collection in there. So there's like, it's just like wall to wall, ridiculously fun stuff at the music school. And so I was
You're looking.
actually,
You're looking after your market.
yeah,
You're building a
I'm trying to.
market.
I always think it's funny how, you know, part of me thinks that, you know, of course, you know, somebody would want to get lessons from us and buy a guitar and buy pickups and an amp, and I'm always critical of myself for not being able to convert, you know, one to all.
Yeah.
But it's there's something to be said about, you know, the guy that's really in touch with his pickups, the guy that's really in touch with his amp, and the guy that's really in touch with his guitar. It's like the 3 are not necessarily the same person. There might be like a little bit of 2 of them in one person, and you know, you meet people that are obsessed with speakers. They could tell you about
Uh,
every single speaker, and then I'm like,
Microphones are
microphones. I
microphones.
like
Ooh.
microphones.
I bet you do. It's another tone element.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm trying to stick to guitars as I call what I do. I call what I am a civilian. I've never played music nor been in the business. I'm only enjoying it, and the things that I'm learning about tone are helping enhancing my ability to enjoy music. So when you were talking about Robin guitars, this is the kind of thing I've started to learn about just in the last 2 or 3 years, where I go to see an artist on stage and I look at that headstock and I go,
Hmm.
what kind of guitar is that?
What
Who
is
made
that?
that?
Yeah.
And what is it about? And the world of guitar manufacturing and amplification and mics is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And it's a deep well. I mean, gosh, you can. There's no end to the amount that you can learn.
And you're obviously very good at teaching yourself or finding the right person to teach you.
I, it's funny. The guys around here will tell you, like, when I'm stuck on a problem, the first thing I'll say is, "Oh, I just wish I had somebody to talk to about it." Like, somebody to walk me through the problem I'm having right now.
Well, that's what my podcast is all about. I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling authorities, and some of them play
Yeah.
music. Do you know who David Grissom is, the
Oh yeah.
guitarist?
Oh, definitely.
Have y'all done any work with him? He's in Austin.
Like Dave Wintz knew him, but I don't know any of the details. I mean, they it's one of those things. You
Yeah.
probably did some work for him, long ago, and
Texas Texas is a huge state. You can't
this is
oversimplify it.
yeah,
That's why I
no,
told
it's
you I
not.
want to get back to and see some of Houston. But
Hmm.
David Grissom talked to me about Strats and Tellies and about how Nashville is a Telly town and
Hmm.
Dallas, Austin was Strats. And so when you talk about this Robin guitars, I hear pioneer. It's,
Yeah, yeah. Houston has always been like an SG town, has been little, you know, I don't know,
that's
a
it.
little more
That's
rock and roll, I guess.
well, Houston. It's got its own thing. It's got a lot going on. And okay, I could talk to you all day. I got to find out how you got with Silvertone guitars, which is
Silvertone,
the legacy of my podcast is about Dan Letro and Silvertone.
right?
And of course,
Yeah.
they were both being made in the 50s and 60s by the Dan Letro Corporation for Sears. And now those companies have been reimagined, and there's a new Silvertone that is making guitars in the same basic design as the old ones, Masonite, the construction, and they have lipstick pickups. So talk to me about you and Silvertone.
Yeah, so the company that owns Silvertone now is called RBI, and
Okay.
it's Rhythm Band Instrument, I guess, corporation. I don't know. They've been around since the 60s,
Okay.
and so they've very much been a part of the music manufacturing ecosystem.
Okay.
And so they own several brands, including Toka Percussion, which is just a very, very large percussion brand. They make like congas and stuff like that, wood blocks and marimbas, stuff like that. And so they acquired the Silvertone brand a few years ago, I believe, from. Oh, I just had a blank.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, they bought it from another company. They bought the brand, and so they've been making guitars, you know, in the classic Silvertone style, with the pickups here. So this is one that came out of one of their Silvertone reissue guitars, and so this is the same. Very, very similar pickup to the original pickups. Now they were. It's a bar magnet with the wire wrapped directly onto the bar magnet, which is a hard thing to pull off. keeping the wire on the magnet is tough. And then, of course, they, found surplus lipstick tubes at incredible prices, and so they came up with this pickup format way back in the 50s. And it certainly has its charms. I mean, the look, I think we all agree that the look is like, it's awesome.
It's so cool.
I always thought it was an incredibly cool look.
They're the prettiest pickups.
Yeah. And I remember being a kid and being like, lipstick, like, that's kind of weird. and then you find out the 10-second history of that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. It's like a green product,
Mm-hmm. Repurposed.
Yeah, so anyway, RBI, who owns Silvertone, they're actually based out of Fort Worth, Texas. And so...
oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and this is kind of the most benign part of this entire story. So RBI and the parent company of Rio Grande Steamboat Amps and Robin guitars is called the Electric Music Company. Mm-hmm. That's the corporation that Jack Brandt and I started to hold our brands, mm-hmm. if you will. Mm-hmm. So we have the same bank as RBI. And so a banker goes, hey, I have these clients in Fort Worth, I think. They do like something with music. Silver, and before he can even finish it, I'm like, Silvertone? Is that what you're talking about, Silvertone? And he's like, maybe. And so, they put us in touch through email. And before you know it, we're on a Zoom meeting kicking around product collaboration ideas.
When was the approximate time of this? I'm curious how quickly this all came together.
I want to say this was like 9 months ago, maybe.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
Brought together by a banker.
Yeah, right. And the funniest part about it was just, to me anyway, is just how, the banker could barely remember either one of our company's names. Mm-hmm. and that's all it took, So I'm finding, it's looking like maybe around April was when we first had our first conversations. And,
right on. I love this.
And we talked about, a couple different things, but we quickly landed on doing some lipstick pickups. And so there was kind of two asks from us. One was to make, this original lipstick design, which I'm sure people that are familiar with it, it's a wide pickup. Like it's much wider than the span of the strings from E to E. And so, well, that's where I came up with the name for our pickup is the Wide Boys.
I like it.
And Silvertone really liked the name. I felt, proud of myself for, let's see, this is actually this is the bracket for the pickup. And it says...
I'm going to take a picture of this.
Yeah, this is actually a misprinted one, but you can see how the print isn't quite clear on it. So this was actually a rejected bracket. But we actually made these brackets in-house. We had the metal cut out for us, and then we bent and installed the press nuts on them, and then we used a laser engraver to put the Silvertone brand on there, made by Rio Grande, made in Texas.
I noticed that it also says Silvertone on the outside. Mm-hmm. Do y'all use the same laser thing to do that too?
Yeah.
Wow, it's classy looking.
Oh, thank you so much.
I would love to have one that says the lipstick pickup on it.
I know a guy.
We're going to talk about that off camera. I need a
Yeah.
pickup.
So, yeah. I made, I think I was telling you, maybe it was in the pregame. I have a Telecaster, and I put a lipstick pickup in the neck slot, and I lasered the Grande font on there. So
Boy,
it's like
that,
something that only the player can see, but when I see it, I
and when you say
smile.
player, you do mean playa.
Hey,
So,
speaking
so
the
tell,
H-Town language here, yeah.
so it's an upgrade to the standard. So you're making their standard pickups and the upgraded one,
So
or
no, we are not making their standard pickup. The standard
okay,
pickup is made in China,
okay,
and that's these here. Um, you know, we did talk about this a little bit, but it's one of those things. It's like, one, do you like the way these pickups sound? And then does Made in America mean something to you or not? So now, sound wise, these are they have a low coil resistance. So these are going to be like 3.5K to 5K, and that's directly correlated to the number of copper winds around the magnet.
gotcha.
On our pickup, the bridge pickup is 10K, and the neck pickup is like 7.5K. So our pickups are much hotter. And and like I was
Yes.
saying earlier, they sound different. So whereas the original lipsticks have like a very mid scooped chimey sound, ours have like a little more mid range. They sound maybe more like a real hot Strat pickup, maybe mixed with a little bit of P90.
Gotcha.
So one thing that we are trying to assert in our marketing is, it's not just made in America with high quality materials. It's a different sound. So, and maybe you want one guitar with the old pickups, and maybe you want one guitar with the new pickups.
I want one guitar with the new pickups, please.
Yes. Yeah. And so one thing that RBI has been doing, they also distribute a line of guitars called vintage guitars. Something that RBI has been doing is they've been doing like a mod shop where they take a vintage guitar and they kind of pimp it out. They put in like higher quality pickups. They put in nicer tuners. They do like a professional fret job and setup on it,
Yeah.
and they charge a little bit more money for those guitars. And so they are planning to do the same treatment with the Silvertone guitars, like what I think it was either Mod Shop or Garage Shop, something cute like that,
Okay.
where you'd be buying a new guitar, but it would have higher quality components than like the stock Chinese Silvertone guitar.
So if somebody is getting a new Silvertone guitar, they can get these as an upgrade.
Hmm.
And can they also buy them from Rio Grande Pickups directly?
Hopefully, we'll be adding them to the Rio Grande website soon. So,
Okay.
in the chaos of the end of the year, like I'm talking like beginning of November to January, we made we made the amount of pickups that Silvertone ordered from us, and we have not yet had any time to make any more pickups to put on our site. So right this minute, the only place you can get them is from silvertone.com.
Right on.
And they should be available from Silvertone dealers, but of course it's going to be up to the individual dealers to stock those products or not.
It's just getting kicked off.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I cannot believe I'm so excited that I got to talk to you about them. And I believe when I set this up, I won't take too much time, but I had absolutely no idea what a fascinating story you have. So it all worked out. in
Well,
the end.
yeah, thank you so much.
And
You know,
yeah, I'm sorry. Go
I was just
ahead.
gonna say, Silvertone said, "Hey, we had actually planned on an earlier release for last year, and one day Silvertone said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna release a new baritone guitar at NAMM. Let's release the pickups at the same time." And and I said, "Okay, well, you want a salesperson at your booth, you know?" And so I flew out there and I told people about the pickups for 3 days. It was great.
Had you ever attended NAMM out
Yeah,
there?
I've been in 2017 and 2018. I
Okay.
didn't have a booth either times, but
What did you think? Was it exhausting?
oh sure, it's exhausting.
It's
But
fun though.
it's super fun to try everything and meet people that you might only see on Instagram and you know, I I if it's music gear, I like it. Like I don't play drums, but I'll look at I'll look at all the drums. I'll it's one of those things like I want to smash on all the cymbals just to hear what they sound like, but I'm the last person that needs to be doing that. But oh man, like all the microphones, all the studio equipment,
I've never
I eat it
been.
up.
I've never been, and I would love to go check out everything. I'm sure that was an incredible experience for you. Did you look at the new Danelectros? They were also introducing a lot of new models, and
Yeah,
since you are now in the lipstick pickup business, I'm curious to see what you thought about those.
they look great. Unfortunately, I didn't play any of them. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
The booth was very close to the Silvertone booth, and so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people said, "Oh, like y'all are the same company, right?" I was like, "Well, I mean, like 60 years ago." Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I bet you had to answer them a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, I
And
had a ton of people coming up to me and said, "Guess what my first guitar was?" And I was like, "A Silvertone." And they're like, "Yeah."
it's the it's the legacy of the company, and it's not the same company, but the basic construction of the guitars is keeping with the legacy. They're using masonite or its equivalent. Many of the design and other things. I noticed that they were redoing. I've I told you I don't play, but that didn't stop me from buying some great vintage ones, and I think
Yeah.
you'll approve of this one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I love that.
Facebook Marketplace.
Oh yeah, that's
I
great. So
haven't.
they had a guitar version of that shape. Um,
Dano made it for. They
right.
called it. They sold it under two names. One was a Dano name. One was Silvertone, and I think the Silvertone was called a. It was related to the Coral Hornet.
Ah,
And
okay.
I was stalking Silvertone's booth at NAMM on the internet, and I saw that they had something new to this, but it had a different type of pickup on it. But I,
Gotcha.
I know you must have had a blast out there.
Yeah. It was really fun showing people the differences between the pickups and getting excited about it. It was
I want to add for my listeners and also tell you that when you talk about increasing the windings and making the sound hotter, I know
hmm
exactly what you're talking about. Because when I first started the podcast, I was doing it with somebody else who was my partner. It didn't work out, kind of like a band. He didn't have the time, and now I'm a single. I've gone solo. But he would wind his own pickups, and he experimented a lot and sent me the videos of things, you wanted to tinker with the sound of pickups like you guys like to do. Let's wind it this way. Let's wind.
yeah.
But so when you promise people that it's just a different pickup, it's not a better one, it's a different sound because of the increased windings.
hmm
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, and a lot of people they hear higher output and they think, oh, well, it's going to make my amp distort more. That's not really the case. I mean, what you'll get is a punchier sound, a sound that is more dynamic. So if you are digging in, you will hear more out of your amp, and it is going to be dependent on your amp. You know, you will have amps that respond better or worse depending on your setup. But what I try to sell people on is dynamic range. So if you play softly, so that you can play an emotional note, hit a crescendo, there's room in your setup to do that. And I think our pickups allowed you to have a higher level of dynamic.
Right on. I'm sold. Send me 100.
You got it.
How am I doing as a Rio Grande unpaid salesperson?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Can I work the booth for you sometime?
You got it. You got it. Yeah, we gotta really be hitting the Texas circuit. I hope we can get it together this year. I gotta tell you, it's so hard to leave the shop. I mean, we're working on so many projects. Like we're relaunching Robin guitars. We started taking custom shop orders. So I mean, for every single model, we have to have 7 or 8 fixtures. So I mean, gosh, there's a lot of work to do.
You stay in the shop, and I'll be out here on the internet, selling for you at no charge. Rio Grande Pickups. I'm going to get to Houston, and we're going to meet in person, and I'm going to bring you a copy of my father's book, because you told me in the pregame you found this interesting, and I'm going to get you one.
That would be lovely.
I like to try to keep these an hour, not because they run long, but because I don't want these 2 or 3 hour long podcasts. But this one here at nearly an hour and 20 minutes is all killer, no filler at all. I loved learning about you. It's like, Jake, you gave me a TED Talk, man. All things are possible.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Emily. This was a joy to have this talk with you.
I have a lot of respect for business people like you and musicians. And, people are always hating on enterprise and capitalism. I go, meet a good one. They can change your mind. You even changed my mind about bankers today. We love to be mad at
they have their, they're useful sometimes.
Yeah, they have their purpose. I know that you've had to deal with a lot of them over the years. And real estate agents.
Yeah.
This was an inspiring chat. I want to thank you from the Lipstick Pickup. I hope you'll come back on.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
I could talk to you about anything. I like, we didn't even get into music, and I know that we could talk about music. But I'd like to know more about the tube amps. And I used to call these guests on my podcast my sympathetic strings. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Right. Yes. Your sitar folks.
Now I've decided to appoint you all. No offense to Silvertone. I've decided to appoint my guests on my podcast my tone ambassadors.
All right. I'd be happy to be your tone ambassador.
Thank you for being my tone ambassador today. What is the best way? RioGrandePickups.com, is that what the website was?
That's us.
It's all there.
We have all of our models on there. If you don't find what you're looking for, drop us a line. We do custom work. I mean, if you are after some really specific stuff, we also, for Black Friday, we released a pickup called the Tone Twister, and it is a customizable pickup. You can choose, it's a humbucker pickup where you can choose which coil you want for each coil. So you have 2 coils, so you can pick from 5 different options, and you can make your own custom, wildly unique humbucker pickup. And we've just, we released them on Black Friday. We did a cool demo video with Masters of Shred. That's another YouTube and Instagram channel, and we've really started to sell them. Just in the past week, we've got a bunch of orders for Tone Twisters, which, during Black Friday, I was like, man, why aren't we selling these? And then it took a couple of months, and we're getting a bunch of orders for them now.
Careful what you wish for. They were too busy Christmas shopping, and now it's time to take care of the guitars, okay?
Right. I've always tried to tell people, like, Christmas is not like the guitar bonanza that you think it is, because people buy this stuff for themselves. Nobody's getting a lipstick pickup as a gift, okay?
Hey, tone is a 12-month-a-year concern.
Pickups.com, we got t-shirts.
To the audio listener, or he's wearing a T-shirt says Rio Grande Pickups, and I can't wait to get there. I can't thank you enough. I'm going to say goodbye to our listeners, but I want you to hang for a second because I want to talk to you about. I need a pickup. I need a lipstick pickup for a project. I'm going to talk to you about it because. Do you know a guy in the pickup business?
I know one guy.
Oh, right on. And his name is Jake Rynearson of Houston, Texas, and Rio Grande Pickups. I'm going to say goodbye for the lipstick pickup. Thank you, Jake.
Thank y'all.
All right, bye. If you hear excellent tone and the sound of birds chirping, it means you've made it through an entire episode of the Lipstick Pickup Podcast. You're as free as a bird now, but I hope you'll join me again soon. Comments or questions? I can be reached at emily@thelipstickpickup.com.